Hello and welcome to week number 3. This week I would like you all to continue to focus on your annotated bibliographies. This is why for week 3 we don't have any discussion boards nor do we have any new reading assignments from the textbook. I would still like you to go back and review old discussion board posts to look at my feedback, in particular the topic section in which I'm giving everyone feedback on their topics so that hopefully this will give you a better clarity on the direction that you want to pursue with your research paper. I would also like you to go back and review the sections in your textbook, and I would like you to pay particular attention to the section on evaluating and reading your sources. Now, in your annotated bibliography, you are only able to have or only able to use academic sources, and I want you to stay away from popular sources. In your textbook, they talk about the differences between academic and popular sources. Some of those differences include academic sources are written by the scholars, the doctors, and specialists in that field. Academic sources are articles of research, whereas popular sources are written for a mass audience. Academic sources also have works cited pages, and they have in-text citations, so they're referencing other specialists, other scholars' work on that field. So these are the experts, whereas popular sources do not have works cited pages. Popular sources a lot of times are the .com websites, and .com websites you have to be skeptical of the information being presented on that website. Whereas if you have a .org or a .gov website or a .edu website, or better yet, you find an article on a research database, then you know that you can trust that information. So go back and review evaluating sources in your textbook so that you know that you're using all academic sources. If you have any questions about a particular source that you're using, please feel free to ask me. Another thing I should say that I would like to address that's going on in everyone's writing is the reference to the first person collective and the reference to the second person. Now, in academic writing, you want to refer to your reader in the third person. So, in the an example of a second person sentence would sound something like this: if you study, you will earn good grades. Whereas in the third person, you might say, if one studies, he or she will earn good grades. Now, when you refer to your reader in the second person, it becomes confusing because a lot of times we use the second person in command. For instance, you go here, or you need to study, or you need to read, or you need to turn off the television when you read. So a lot of times we are referring to a specific person. So when you refer to your reader in the second person, you are essentially referring to that specific reader, and you're not referring to a collective audience. Remember, as a writer or an academic writer, and particularly this class, your audience is not only me, but your classmates, the Delta College community, and which includes administrators, staff, other faculty members, and other students. So you want to refer to your audience in the third person. You also want to avoid referring to your audience in the first person collective. For instance, we and our. So if you are doing a paper about child rearing, for example, and you make a sentence or you construct a sentence that sounds something along the lines of, we need to do a better job in child rearing our kids, then you are making an assumption that you and that reader have kids together. So it becomes a little bit confusing in regards to point of view. So rather than say that we need to set up policies in which to do a better job in child rearing, you would say something in the third person along the lines of society needs to do, or this up and coming generation needs to do a better job. The same is true when you're referring to American society, for instance. So a lot of times I have students who make collective references to we, our American society, where you want to just be in the third person and just refer to American society or society in general. So these are the things that you want to be aware of in your writing as you are writing your annotated bibliography and as you're writing your research papers. Now, it's okay in your annotated bibliography to refer to your reader in the first person, not first person collective. Now, examples of first person would be I. So, I found this information interesting, or I disagree with the author here, or I decided that I'm going to use this source in my paper because. The reason why I let students use the first person references I in their annotated bibliography is because the annotated bibliography is meant to be a documentation of how you're thinking about your research. So it's okay to put yourself in that position and tell the reader this is how you're feeling about your ideas. Now, when we move from the annotated bibliography to the researched argument, we're going to make that slow transition from the first person to the third person. So, as a reminder, in your annotated bibliography, it's okay to refer to it's okay to refer to the reader from the first person perspective, I. It's not okay to refer to the reader from the first person collective, we or our, and you also want to avoid referring to the reader in the second person, you. Always, 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 as a rule of thumb in academic writing, refer to your reader in the third person. He, she, him, they, her, him. And so this will give better clarity in your writing. On a final note, in your course activities for this week, I also included some helpful links for you to use. So the first thing that I included for your annotated bibliography are links to writing introductions and conclusions, which these links are included on the Purdue OWL website. Now, don't forget, in your annotated bibliography, you have to include an introduction and a conclusion. So it's not just a list of your 8 sources, but you have to introduce your topic, let the reader know what your topic is about and what you're going to explore in that annotated bibliography. Then you have a list and a description of your 8 sources, and then you have a conclusion at the end. So on those links, they talk about the information that you can discuss in your conclusion and in your introduction for your paper. A couple of other links that I provided for you. I provided a link for you to the Delta College Writing Center, which is known as the RIT Center. Now, I know that all of you are not able to get out to the RIT Center on the main campus, but they do it. But if you're not able to get out to the main campus, they will accept your submissions via online. So the RIT Center is a good resource to use because it's always good to have another set of eyes to proofread our papers before we hand in our papers. So you want to make sure that you give yourself ample opportunity to have someone else go over your paper, and if you don't have anyone at your disposal, I highly suggest using the RIT Center. As a matter of fact, I highly suggest using both the RIT Center and getting someone else to read your paper as well. So every writer needs a reader, and the more readers that you have for your paper, the more feedback you'll get and the stronger your paper will be. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to post to the discussion board under the questions section under week 3. And if you have a more specific question, please feel free to write me an email. Once again, happy writing, and I will see you in cyberspace.